Hello, and welcome to the Moonbreaker Rising the Ranks Early Access Update number 6 livestream. Moonbreaker released into Early Access just under a year ago, and so much has changed since then. We've done 6 updates so far, and a couple of hotfixes, but this update is by far our biggest yet. The Rising the Ranks update adds Yewedi crew. If you'll remember, in the last update, the Beasts and Blooms update, we added Zuna and the Gardener, which are 2 new captains to the game. This update, we're adding a bunch of Yewedi crew. All of the crew have amazing lore that go with them, as well as abilities. They'll feel very, very unique and different. We're also adding the Yewedi farm map, rank mode, readability improvements, and so much more. Starting today, you can also try Moonbreaker for free for the next 7 days. And if you like it, if you don't already own it, you can get it at a discount for 34% off. If you already own it, well, it is a multiplayer game, so now would be a good time to let your friends know that they can try it out completely free and see what they think of it. Before we get started, I'd like to share with you our new gameplay trailer. We are so excited about this update, and it's such a big update that we felt like we needed to make a gameplay trailer to go with it as well, to encompass the way that the game has changed in the last year. We've also refreshed our logo and our hero artwork, so I hope that you'll feel that this sort of adds a new look and feel to the game and represents the major changes that we've made over the last year. So without further ado, here is the new Moonbreaker gameplay trailer.
How many moons are there orbiting the light? Do you know? There are hundreds, and between them is the reaches. And all of them, every one, has a cinder. And some people can even use them for powers so incredible, they seem like magic.
Snuggle up! Smoke it!
It's time! You're the boss one. Nice to meet you. Check. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Go beyond the cadet's menu and into the reaches!
All right, how was that? Today we're going to hear from some of the development team on a variety of topics. We'll share gameplay footage and development insights all throughout the stream, from art to design to painting. We won't have time today to address questions live, but feel free to drop your questions into the chat and we'll do our best to address them. As always, you're welcome to join the community in Discord, where you can find a lot of us hanging out. We are so excited to hear from you. A lot of the changes that went into Moonbreaker to date have been directly because of community feedback, so what you say matters. We also have a note where you can post suggestions and bugs. So first we're going to hear from Charlie Cleveland, game director, and Gretar Grissi Runarsson, who's a game designer. They're going to walk through many of the gameplay changes that went into this update, and they also want to share some of the major changes we've made to date and why. So without further ado, here are Charlie and Grissi.
Hey there, this is Charlie Cleveland, the game director at Unknown Worlds Entertainment. You might know us from Subnautica and some of our other games, Below Zero, Natural Selection, but this is Moonbreaker, something totally different. And I'm here with the other game designer on this game, Grissi. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Gretar, also known as Grissi, and I'm the other game designer on Moonbreaker. And we have some exciting changes we want to show you. Yeah.
Yes, we do. Okay, like you specifically have been very busy on this. Yeah, you basically said, "Hey, we got some problems with this game when we launched, and you wanted to make some really big sweeping changes."
Is in the lead.
And
To be honest, it was more than like also just the community was telling us or letting us know, hey, you can improve and help us with the
True.
game. And just
True.
based on their feedback, we
Yeah.
learned some valuable lessons. And we just decided to put it in our new update. And wow, just
the crazy, it's like a whole new
No
game.
one is in the lead.
I mean, I can't believe when you suggested, like, oh, when we had Astra versus Astra with her broken power, you know what? When we had no summoning sickness in the game, it was actually really great. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. Like, that was our #1 assumption that we had in this game. One of the first assumptions for years now. And then you're like, okay, maybe we should get rid of summoning sickness. So why would you say that?
so yeah, like we realized
No one
like
is in the lead.
when you had to like drop a unit and you had to wait the whole turn to use that unit, it got like both like you were very excited to use the unit to do a big combo, and then you had to wait a turn, and the opponent had a big chance to just counter it. So it felt often like a letdown. The other thing it was so difficult to play. Like you had to think 2 or 3 turns ahead, and you know, just to start playing this game, you had to commit just a lot of time. But right now, you can just deploy your unit and you can make your big play, and the opponent can do the same. So both of you are just making these big explosive plays, and just the one that makes the bigger plays basically gets to win the match. But while before, it was like you needed insane amount of practice just to make that nice and very juicy play that you wanted to make.
My stomach
Yes.
is in revolt.
And it's like, if you think of a traditional game design lens where you just want like the more depth the better, then maybe the old way would have been great. Except what you don't realize is that the emotions of playing a game like that it can be really difficult. It's like, it can be a bit tedious, it's slow, it can be frustrating if you like set up this big combo and then something goes wrong, your opponent spawns something that's like a hard counter for you, if there is such a thing. Then suddenly all that work that you did is all irrelevant, and that's like a feel bad moment.
No one is in the
So
lead.
I feel like, I feel like we got this nice blend where you get this exciting play, but if you can, of course, if you can still spawn the right units and you still built a good roster, and you're still doing this high-level positioning, all that pays off long-term. But we get like a zesty short-term explosion as well.
Exactly, and it's easy to fall into the category if you have played a lot of games like Dota and League, and you have a lot of experience with maybe with miniatures games. You can you have trained your mind to think about these moves like so far ahead. But for majority of players just entering the game, it was a bit too much. We were a little bit worried that maybe this will simplify the game when we tried this initially, but it turned out the complexities just changed. Now you have to adapt to the opponent making this big play, and wow, like the game is just as deep. Like there's still like crazy things you have to think about, and it's more tricky to keep your crew alive now. So you have to position them carefully and make sure like the opponent's big play is not as big as yours.
Yep. You know, it's weird because like with Subnautica, it was like, you know, we make some assumptions early on in the game, and then, you know, I thought that there'd be, you know, nothing violent or scary happening in the game. I thought it was going to be all about science. And then we launched it in early access, and we're like, okay, well, the science stuff is really boring. Actually, it's really funny. It's the same emotions that we got wrong, too. But then listening to the players and watching how they react, it was suddenly clear that the terror part of it was where it really came to life. So I'm hoping this is actually a similar shift for us. It completely changes the feel of the game without really sacrificing the core.
It really does. And it also enables very different combos and plays that we have not seen before. Like before it was like, I want to use pummel, or like use one unit to allow another unit to do 2 attacks. It took like 3 turns to set it up. Well, now you can just save up leadership and you can do it 1 turn if you want to, surprising your opponent. And opponent can also react to that. He will see you save up the leadership. He knows something big is coming, so he can spread up the unit, and he can realize like, okay, I can react to this.
Yep.
And
I love that.
It makes the plays much more explosive. And I've noticed like also when you watch the games, they're so much more fun to watch because like.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But like
much more exciting for streaming and stuff.
Exactly, because both players are just making explosive plays after explosive plays, instead of like
Yep.
you had to almost have a master degree just to understand like, hey, like okay, now
What? That's a reasonable. That's system requirements, master's degree in chess.
yeah, exactly, just to understand. Okay, this is the big play.
Yeah.
He pushes this, with the summoning sickness.
He's planning ahead for
Exactly.
this.
Well,
Yeah.
now you can visually see the execution, what happened, and you can really live it
Yes.
through the player, like what he's like. You see what he's
Yep.
thinking, which is amazing.
It also allows us to design units that do something exciting as soon as they land on the table. You know, like this captivator unit, like it can act immediately and send out the tendrils and like, you know, just like paralyze people like right away, which is just wonderful. Like I think we end up by seeing people, like I know when we made the transition, someone would do something dastardly to me and I would just say, good job. Like that was a great play. It didn't feel bad because I knew I was going to get to do my own kind of junk to them on my turn. So you just kind of, I don't know, it just feels good all around.
I really like the captivator. It's like just the ability, like there's so many combos you can do with it, and just capturing the opponent, and the opponent has to attack the captivator to break free. Otherwise, like they're just going to stay stuck and take their damage. So they have to deal with them. And meanwhile, you can have multiple other units to combine with it.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. I like how it can just do like 5 tendrils, or like it can do. I think it can do any number of them, right? I forgot where we landed.
Oh,
with it exactly.
unlimited basically, while everything is in
Unlimited.
in range.
Yeah. I love that. So what else? I mean, we also made some other huge changes, which they're less core. In other ways, they're just as core, but like the victory points. I guess I'll talk about. Well, why don't you talk about the tug of war in the lower right?
Yeah, so in the lower right corner now, you might see something new if you have played the game before. It's like there are like these 10 slots around the turn, very press and turn basically, and there both players are trying to fight to get 5 stars, like 5 victory points ahead of the opponent. And if you got a star and the opponent kills a unit, you lose your star, and he can get a star if he gets enough. So like the focus is basically, if you capture the capture points, if you kill their unit, you start to gather your stars. If the opponent kills your units and takes your capture points, he takes away your star and then starts to gather stars. And if you have enough stars, you win the game. And this makes it so that the player that has the momentum, you can see it visually, you can feel it, and like it fits really well with the explosive plays we mentioned before. Like you deploy and make an explosive play. So you make an explosive play, you get some stars, you get some victory points, and then the opponent does the same, and you can see this the victory.
See it going back and forth,
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things I love about it is the game can actually be very short, because instead of the old system required 10 victory points, now you essentially only require 5. So if you get 5 before your opponent gets any, the game can be over in 5 or 10 minutes. But if it's a really neck and neck game, it's very close, it can keep going back and forth, and the game, you can have like a really tight long game that's like a real nail biter. But then, of course, to address the really long games, we put in sudden death. So after a certain number of turns, instead of needing 5 victory points to win, it now becomes 4, and then it becomes 3 and 2, and eventually, if it gets all the way to 0, if neither side has any victory points, it's a tie. Which I think is that I like that system a lot, because it means the closer the opponents, the longer the game.
Yeah, and they often oftentimes the ending are very like exciting. Like you have this. Like you used all your crews on a bridge, you have this last stance, and you're seeing like the sudden death triggers, there's one less victory point, and you just have to make the big play, you have to make this work. And only time it happens is when the games are even, which was because it was a problem before. Like sometimes games just lasted forever, maybe it was a very one-sided game, but it could take a long time to end the game, and it felt like a drag both for the player winning and the player that was losing. So right now, like, if it is a one-sided game, the games end pretty quickly. Like, the players ahead will just get this 5 victory point, and you can jump straight into another game.
Yeah, boom. Yeah.
But like, if it's a very even game and both players are really fighting, then the games, they can last longer, and you can see really like the victory point, like the tug of war system, go back and forth. And those games are so fun.
I can see
just
that.
love those games.
I do too, and especially when I see, Grissie is, or Gretar, Grissie is one of the best players in the community, top 1, 2, 3, right up there. So watching you play against, Jester or something, it can be so tense. Like everything matters. But if you just go online to a quick public game, you'd be like, okay, we're done. You don't have to waste too much time. It's not too painful. It's like, oh, they just got ahead of me.
And and I've played these players, and they're very happy, because it kept the depth, and we have these exciting games, but we also have been watching newer players touching the game, and they're also enjoying it more because it's much easier to make their combo in big plays. So both these changes have.
And also, there's
just surprisingly well. I'm so happy with it.
It's funny, we've been sitting on these changes for way too long. We made these changes like almost 3 months ago, but they didn't make it into the last big patch. So we've been playing with these this whole time, and we knew that we just couldn't. They were just too big to ship as like a quick follow-up patch. So it's nice to finally get these changes out in the community, and we've had them on the experimental branch, but it's nice to get them to everyone right now.
Another thing we also added is that you can now deploy around crews. But before you could only deploy around the captains. You can now deploy around the crews. So before you could only you had to move your captain between every victory point, and you couldn't really play the captain the full way like you wanted. And it was hard to play the whole map. But now you can spread out your units if you like, and you can attack, like you have multiple front lines, and your captain, you can do whatever with him. You can keep him back, you can keep him at the front line, like however you want to play him. And that really frees up the game and allows for way more like tactical decisions. And it's been surprising.
Yeah, it lets you kind of have a front, like if you can get a unit up here and then move your captain down here, you can now spawn units up here. So you can now have units coming from two sides.
Exactly. And it's been so cool to watch multiple front lines, sometimes 3, 4 front lines happening at the same time, and you're trying to get the last unit so the opponent can reinforce it. And it completely changes how the dynamic of the games.
And so this game is really, at its core, it's all about unit positioning, which doesn't really sound that exciting, but trust me, it is.
It depends who you ask. Unit positioning, oh man, that sounds amazing.
Right, like, oh wow, it's so exciting. But like, once you know that it's about unit positioning, you realize that every single move you make affects where you spawn units, like what units can attack other units. They can block line of sight, or not really line of sight, but they can lower accuracy. And it just explodes. The combinations just explode from like a very, very simple system.
And that's one of the big things, when people really dig into the movement and positioning, and start to dance truly with your opponent. Holy shit, the games just open up so... You start to see the game in a totally new light.
Your turn. You have a 2-point lead.
The other thing we didn't talk about is that you can get victory points on killing a crew. So, like right here, that Novian turret, I guess he's not going to actually kill them, but Tipu's going to kill, you see that they'll get 1 victory point. So you can actually pull a victory out of your butt. Like, there's certain situations where if you can do a sweep, even if you didn't have access to a lot of control points, you might still be able to win the game just on the pure military play. It's exciting. It feels like victory is always within your grasp, even if it isn't.
And in this game, it has been a very even game, but now in this turn, we are seeing Abraxas he's making some big plays, and he's already 3 victory points ahead now. And he might get...
That's why he wanted us to cover this game.
Of course.
Sneaky Abby.
On the field.
Yeah, that's funny. So, like, what else? I mean, gosh, there's so much more to talk about. Do you want to talk about some of the units? I feel like these are some of the best units we've designed up to this point.
Yeah, like Texo that he's using
right
now.
here.
Yeah, like every time you heal a crew to full health, it increases its max health by 3. So we have seen some crazy combinations of this where you put this down early and you get units to like 15, 16 health. That's that's just very low health, and it gets very hard to kill any of the crews. So yeah, the new units are just creating some new crazy combinations that can be used.
What I love about Texo is it means suddenly damage isn't always bad. it means like you can actually damage your own units and then heal them to make them more powerful. Like I think that's like completely different. You know, it flips the whole script.
Yeah, and you also try really hard to find units. You're like, what unit can damage my my crews?
Yeah.
Like just to use the buff. Like, you want to use Gardener Thornvines. It's like, yeah, now you took 1 damage, and now I can buff it up.
Yep. Actually, it's funny. We noticed is Tipu still in play here? Up at the north. I don't think we're gonna get to see it, but
he was
Tipu,
quite big.
There it is. Yeah. So Tipu grows every time he attacks. His attack and his health grow,
You have a
and that
3-point
was
lead.
it's probably
7
like
death
one
will
of the
begin
fan
on the
favorite
next
units.
turn.
I feel like people just the lesson there was that people love seeing those numbers
deployed
increase.
the
There he is.
maximum
Let's see.
number
He's only
of
5'10",
on
but
the field.
And people is getting the
that's
win.
pretty good. And now he's gonna get it right now. He's gonna be 6'11" now.
Yeah.
Point to
Well
win.
done.
Oh, there he goes. Yeah, Tipu for the win. But that was the lesson there was like those players love those numbers increasing. That, I think that's where the Texo Rebuilder Texo, that inspiration for the growing the health came from.
And also, we're just seeing more, like with these changes, we have seen more combination between units. Players are using multiple units to combine together, creating some like insane plays like you never
Yeah.
got to thought of before. And we probably just scratched the surface. Like players have yet to just discover like. Yeah,
I know.
I'm
new
excited
crew and
to
every new
see what this
captain,
goes.
it
Exactly.
explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got new captains coming up in the next patch, and we got so much more coming. It's just going to keep going. So I think we're out of time here, though, aren't we? Or is this going to keep going? No, that's it.
That's it.
Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the new update. We put a lot of work into it, and we took a lot of community feedback, and I hope you love it.
Looking forward to seeing you in game.
See you online.
See ya.
Just you don't want to fight Grissy, but you want to fight me instead. Flayra, yeah. Look for a Flayra.
All right. Thank you, Charlie and Grissy. I especially love hearing about the tug of war changes that have gone into this update. That's taken us a lot of time to hone, and it's brand new in the Rise in the Ranks update, so we'll be really excited to hear what everybody thinks of it and how it feels. Next up, we're going to talk to Marta Maximiak, a unit painter, and Carolyn Liu, programmer on Moonbreaker, about the painting tool. Many don't know this, but the paint jobs that you see in the game that are made by us are actually made using the painting tool. They're not made in engine, they're not textures, they are carefully hand painted over many hours in game. We worked really hard to make this painting tool feel like real life miniatures painting with some added digital bonuses like glitter paint and an undo button. So I hope that you enjoy hearing from Marta and Carolyn, and without further ado, here they are.
Hello, I am Carolyn. I'm a programmer on Moonbreaker. One of the features I've worked on a lot is the painter, and we also have with us here Marta.
Yeah, hi, I'm Marta. I'm a unit painter in Moonbreaker. I paint all the units that you can see in the game.
So one thing that a lot of people might not know is that actually all of the default paint jobs in Moonbreaker are done within our unit painting tool. So Marta, our great painter, actually uses all the tools in the game to make all of these incredible effects. So Marta, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite funny that people don't expect it to be painted with the tool, with the actual tool that we also share with our players. So yeah, we don't use any professional software to paint our units. We use just paint mode, and I just paint same like as players paint, and I have almost the same tools available as the players have. Of course, we have some developers tool, so my job is quite easier, a little bit easier than players would have if they were to paint 60 units. But yeah, it's much fun, and I somehow managed to do that. Thanks to tools that you, Caroline, implemented, and they were great.
I didn't do all of them, but did some of them.
Many very useful ones.
Yeah. One interesting thing I think about our painter is that we don't actually try to be very much like other digital painting software. So for example, we don't have a bucket tool, and that's very intentional because it's like, it's not that we can't do it, but we really want to kind of get across this feeling of like that you get from analog painting, just like real world painting, or like, you know, like if you're filling in a coloring book or something like that, you know, the process of filling in that space yourself, I think, can be pretty relaxing compared to if you just like could fill a bucket everything, right? So like we want that feeling of like bliss and like focus that you get from like doing these in like kind of a more hand painted way, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it's also, it's not that difficult to paint specific parts. So even without the bucket tool, we can paint really quickly with masking tool, which allows us to separate some parts from each other. And I think it's very interesting that it works like when you start to paint on one part, the tool just knows that so you're painting this part of a gun.
Yeah, like our goal, I think, is to like bring in all of the nice fun parts of the physical painting, but like also have the conveniences of, you know, being in a game, like being a digital thing. I think that's also what we're trying to do with our gameplay, which is cool. But yeah, like we have undo, we have the masking, and like you said, it's like pretty fun, I think, how the masking is like automatic, like you don't have to choose I'm gonna work on this part. But yeah,
it's very nice.
Yeah, I guess one thing we could also talk about, we have all these different brushes. You can see that right now. She's using a dry brush on this.
Yeah, my absolute favorite.
Cool switchback.
Dry brush is so satisfying, especially when I work with contrasting colors. So dry brushing something very bright on something dark, it feels awesome.
Yeah, like what would you say that you mostly use the dry brush for?
Accentuating the edges, of course, but also I really like when I start working with specialty paints, as it's visible here in the footage sometimes. I use metallic paints, so I try to dry brush them a little on the edges, so just the edges are a little bit touched with this metallic gloss.
That's like as nice. If it's been kind of like rubbed away a little bit.
Yeah. So it's very nice.
Yeah, and it really brings out. Yeah, and it's cool. So like we have all these different brushes that are trying to mimic real world techniques. So like, you know, if you're painting a real miniature, you would use a dry brush to, you know, highlight the edges. And we have like the wash, which tries to get into those crevices. So the same way that like a paint wash would work. And like using those together, I think can really like make your paint job pop with like just, you know, you don't even have to really paint anything. Like if you just like kind of broadly go over your unit with like some, you know, a base color and then wash and then dry brush, I feel like it already looks pretty 3D, which is cool.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Sometimes I just do very quick paint jobs and just using, as you said, dry brush, wash, and sometimes airbrush just to finish something off, and it works amazing. And I think that it's possible to paint a unit in under an hour just using those tools. But of course, if you want to,
say an hour. I think in the past, like at one point, someone was asking for like just a lot of example paint jobs, and I just painted like 5 different arias in like 5 minutes each.
Yeah. It's completely possible. It's so nice. And also, I really like stipple brush.
That was a like request from our painters, actually. Like we didn't have that as our original set of tools. But yeah, like I think that really like adds a lot of texture. Like the stipple like does these little dots kind of randomly around. And yeah, I think that's like that we hadn't thought about that before, and that was actually because of our painters, you know, they wanted to create those kind of effects.
Yeah, it's so nice to paint wear and tear using wash and stipple brush and some of like a tad of airbrush. Super cool.
Yeah, I'd say airbrush is probably my favorite brush. Partially because I implemented it. It was really funny. I think originally I was trying to do something really fancy where I was like, I want it to like, you know, almost like cast a shadow. Like, you know, like if you're airbrushing over something and it's blocking the back, like it won't paint there. But that was getting like super complicated. So I ended up actually doing like, it's actually like, in terms of like graphic stuff, it's very simple. It's just like based on if it's facing the direction that you're viewing it from, then it will paint there and there's like kind of a fall off. And I think like works pretty well and looks kind of like if you were spray painting something in real life, it would have that kind of directional look to it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite effects to do with it is just like fake lighting. Like if
Oh,
you just
yeah.
airbrush something like from an angle, just with a bright color, it kind of looks like there's like a light coming from there. So that I do that a lot.
It's
My
also
cheat.
my secret brush to paint non-metallic metal. So all the like
Oh,
fake
yeah.
fake metallic effect comes from the airbrush work. I just lower the
that's something
opacity
actually.
and use like correct colors for the metal and effect, and it works gorgeous.
Yeah, that's like something actually I think a lot of people like don't know about our default paint jobs. Like I think somebody on our Discord was like, "Oh, it sucks that like we don't have the metallic paint straight off because the default paint jobs have them." And it's like, no, they actually don't. It's just that Marta is like really good at doing this fake metal, which is something people do in real life actually, like
Yeah.
called non-metallic metal.
Yeah, it's real life
actually,
technique.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have like a tutorial video on that, right? Like
Yeah.
on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to give like your tips on how to get that look?
Right colors, and you have to have like 5 colors. So that's awesome that we have custom palettes because we can collect our colors in one set. So in the tutorial I'm doing gold, and just like correct colors, shades, and then very delicate work with airbrush and the opacity of it. And yeah, it's very simple, to be honest. I think the tutorial is really worth checking out if someone is interested in that.
Yeah, I think it looks really good. I've also seen like some of our players have tutorials on how to paint Moonbreaker too, which are really good actually.
Yeah. It's nice to learn from players too. I like to check on Discord and on YouTube sometimes.
Yeah. I guess on the topic of metallic paints that we aren't using for the default paint jobs, I guess we can talk about the actual metallic paints and other specialty paints we have.
Yeah, they are super cool, and I'm really happy that I had because I don't use them for default paint jobs, so I'm not really using them that often. But recently I've started and I really love them. Yeah, I'm really happy with them.
I feel like they're just like like you can spend all this time like kind of faking the effect, but like it's really satisfying. I feel like just to like paint the metallic paint all over it and it's just shiny and like looks great.
Yeah.
And the emissives, like I think you have some emissives in this, the lightning in this model.
Yes.
Looks really cool.
Yeah, glow, like painting with light, it's so cool. Super satisfying. And also, it's amazing how, for example, glow works with wash. Brush.
Yeah.
So
I
you
love
can
how
just
that looks.
squeeze it in crevices, and it works so well.
Yeah. It like really makes it look like the whole object is glowing. Like I think somebody had a really cool like ghost paint job using kind of like I think the way to do it is like having a dark like base paint and then using wash with like a light emissive. It looks so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
One of our recent special paints was the glitter brush. That was kind of a pain to implement, but it works pretty differently from our other specialty paints because like metallic and glow are kind of just like properties that we can set on the material. But like the glitter brush is actually kind of works as like a weird version of our decal system. I guess we also like didn't really talk about decals, but we have our decals that you can stamp onto the model. So the glitter brush actually it's kind of like a Photoshop brush where like we have this glitter texture and we just stamp it. And it has like a little bit of like metallicness and glow to it, and that just makes that glitter effect.
It's
I don't
super
know.
cool.
I think we spent actually a long time trying to tune the glitter brush to like work the way that we wanted. That would like look good on field. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, it took some brainstorming and testing and trying out, but I'm very happy where we landed on. So, yeah, thank you, Caroline, for your patience to create the glitter paint. It was nice.
Yeah. What do you think? I guess like when we're tuning the paints and like the brush, like the special paints, like what do you think you usually think about like to make sure they work, they look good in the game?
For sure, I need to check them how they look on maps very often, because what we see in paint mode not always represents what we are going to see on maps, because on every map we have different lighting, so that's something that changes.
That was a big thing.
Also, we see the miniature from usually from far away,
Like way further away.
Yeah, and from
like
a
I think
different
our
angle.
glitter particles were like originally way too small. Like you just couldn't really see them.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
game.
So it's sometimes, you know, it's good to just check on map, and
Yeah.
and also just looking at them, how they work with our tools, with different brushes. That's also important, with different opacities. We want them to work well with, like, in every setting possible.
Yeah. Cool. I think we are out of time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was great talking with you.
Yeah, we did too. Thank you very much.
All right, a big thank you to Marta and Carolyn for joining us. I think we can all agree that the dry brush is the MVP brush in the painting tool. Next, we're going to hear from James Stout, lead environment artist, and Ollie Hobbs, level designer, about creating maps in Moonbreaker. It's challenging to make maps that are visually readable, balanced, and capture the miniatures feel all in one. It's so challenging, in fact, that we've had to effectively redesign our maps from the beginning. The environment and level designers work very hard to get the ambiance and the layout and everything exactly right, and there are even more changes in the pipe to enhance replayability for each map. But I'll let you hear it from them directly. Without further ado, here are James and Ollie.
Hello there, this is James Stout. I'm the lead environment artist on Moonbreaker.
Hiya, I'm Ollie. I am the level designer on Moonbreaker.
So nice to chat with you today, Ollie.
It's
It is so
always
nice to
lovely
talk
to chat
with you.
with you as well, James. It's always a pleasure.
We're looking at the Yiowedi Farm map. This is the new map for this patch. Pretty proud of it. Ollie put in a lot of good work. It's a really fun map.
Oh, thank
I'd
you.
hope.
You guys have put in a lot of good work as well. This is probably arguably the best looking map we've done so far.
Oh, thanks, man. We brought in a lot of lessons learned over the course of like developing the earlier content through the game, and we've tried to really hone in on a few tenets to follow while we're making the new art. One like easy rule that we try to follow is what I tell folks is you have to be able to imagine you rubbing your thumb over the surface of any art asset in the level, and you need to be able to imagine how it would feel. And that and like a few other things we're really trying to pay attention to is really we're really trying to emphasize that mini feel. Like I think that the earlier maps really do a great job on that, but we wanted to just push it further. And yeah, focusing on that tactility and the scale of details has really helped us push it forward some.
Yeah, and on top of that as well, a lot was put into readability as well for this map, in terms of just when we initially started with this, the ground was actually really busy. We were having quite a hard time just seeing units when things got really busy, so we came back and essentially redesigned the map for better readability with the art that James and co have done, which is a really good job. And there was a lot more of the little purple bushes that were scattered around the map, which are low cover visibility, which we wanted to add a bit of more of a dynamic feel to this map, whereas the other maps were just basic soft and hard cover. We wanted something in this to be a bit different, so it would stand out in terms of gameplay and visuals, which I think we've accomplished with this quite well. So in terms with the little purple plants you can see everywhere, they act as low cover, so units can just move through them and use them as cover as well, so they're unobstructed, and it creates quite a different gameplay from the other maps, like I mentioned. And I think yeah, it turned out pretty well, this, even though we went through a few redesigns to really get this to play as well as it could with the current unit balance in the game that's been going on really well. So yeah, all in all, I think this has turned out pretty well.
Thanks, man. Oh yeah, and I did want to just give a quick shout out to Ben, Brant, and Michal, 3 artists I worked with on this map. They all did killer work, and they were really fun people to work with. But yeah, to get a little bit nitty gritty on it, jumping off of what you said, Ollie, on the readability end, we learned a few lessons as we looked at the old maps and received and listened to feedback from the community. One thing that we're really going a lot more aggressive on, like Ollie mentioned, is simplifying the play space, having more areas for the eye to rest so that you can really just focus on what units are on the board, what status effects do they have on them, where are the capture points, and when you're looking around, a real priority for us is there should be zero confusion as to whether or not you can move to a location, and what types of cover are in those areas as well. So we really just for a really simple example, we the outsides of the map, we tried to increase the visual density, and that's where we kind of put in a lot of our fun mini details. And so when you're scooting around the map, there's a lot of fun stuff to look at, but we try to keep the play space generally cleaner. And we may actually also go to some of the older maps that we've done and bring in some of that same some of those same ideas into it. And then additionally, we have to give props to the character team, because they also did some really good work for this patch, where they went through to every single unit in the game and they adjusted the levels, brightness, and saturation on all of the character work. I think Brian and Marta did a lot of that. And so the idea is to generally make the environment darker so it kind of occupies a lower value range, but the characters, they have a lot of range of brightness in them. They go brighter than the environments typically do, and they just have more contrast. And so what we're really hoping the effect is that they just pop a lot easier. So you should never have to be looking around to see where your units are. We just want it to be immediate and never something that is crossing a player's brain.
Yeah, absolutely. And what he was saying with hopefully redesigning some of the other maps to improve the readability of those as well, it's definitely a plan to be doing as well, because like I say, we learned a lot doing this map and some of the others as well, so it'd be good to just take all of that knowledge and what we've learned and apply those to the other ones, so it's not wasted essentially, because essentially we really enjoyed making those in a way, and they are good fun to play, even if we're going in a slightly different direction I suppose to those initially. But again, it's been a learning process for us, and yeah, it's just putting it all into play, and this one's really come together quite nicely. So yeah, there's lots more plans for PvP maps and implementing what we learned from this one, especially in the older ones that we've done, just to keep them all together, and hopefully people enjoy them.
Yeah. One really fun thing about this map is how it kind of changes the relationship that you'll have with melee units. I think in earlier versions of Moonbreaker, the meta was pretty much that ranged units always had a really strong edge, and in this map we really tried to make it feel quite a bit different than the other maps, and we want each map to have along with a strong visual identity, we want it to have a strong gameplay identity as well. And on this map, Ollie really focused on putting in a lot of this low visibility cover, and it's really fun to see how much havoc it wreaks with ranged characters. I think in particular here you can see that Zax constantly has to contend with drastically lowered accuracy when we hide units behind the crops in the farm.
Yeah, with the low-vis cover on this, but it's basically, I remember when we were brainstorming this initially, Ben came up with the idea of like, what if we had crops in a farm and it was all low-vis cover? And I was like, that actually sounds like a really good idea, Ben. Let's go off and research that, and that's basically how this map kind of came to be in terms of gameplay. And then, like I said, you guys came in and arted it up wonderfully. I mean, there had to be some purple in this map, obviously, because Ben is all about the purples and nailed that completely. But yeah, initially when we introduced low-vis cover, I think it was in Refinery actually. We had some little grates with smoke coming out of it, and we actually found that really fun to play around and added a nice little bit of dynamicism to the map. And we were just like, we need to expand this. And then, as I said, Ben came up with the idea of having crops that you could move through in a farm space, and that eventually came Yoweti Farm. And we went through a couple of redesigns to get to where we are now. As we remember, melee units were slightly different a few versions ago, so we've had to do a few redesigns for them, but everything's come together now and everyone is enjoying the map. I'd like to say immensely, but I'm sure there's some people who are thinking, oh, it could be a little bit different here, and that's the advantage with how our new cover tool that's coming that's really helped us make really fast iterations on these maps now. So if there's ever a small balance issue that Grissy likes to point out to us, we can just hop in very quickly, move things about, and hey presto, there you go. Whereas before, it would be a bit more of a rigmarole to get things the way we wanted to, so stuff now is a real quick and easy process, and that's been really helpful for all of us on the art team.
Yeah, and on that cover tool update, of course, it's not something that the players are going to really be able to see, but like we're really excited about it. And basically, we've radically overhauled how the cover in the game is authored, and after these next couple patches, we're really hoping to like explode the number of map permutations that you'll be able to see. Thanks for chatting, Ollie. You have a good one, okay?
You too, man.
I don't think James realized that the game was coming to an end there. Thank you, James and Ollie, very much for joining. The improvements made in the maps are like night and day from a year ago, and we're really excited for everyone to try them out. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. As a reminder, Moonbreaker is free for the next 7 days on Steam, so we're really looking forward to you jumping in, trying it out, letting us know what you think. Share it with your friends. Remember, it's at a discount as well, so if you really like it, then you can pick it up at a reduced rate. We'd also love to hear from you on Discord about Rising the Ranks or about Moonbreaker as a whole. It is an early access game, and so we're always striving to improve the game in preparation for the inevitable 1.0 launch. We've made sweeping changes in the last 12 months, and we're looking forward to making more improvements on the path to making the perfect digital miniatures game that you want to play. So join us in Discord and on Notes and let us know what you think. Keep an eye out for updates from the team across our social media, and in the meantime, keep in touch. We'll see you all on the reaches. Bye. Thank you.